The United Nations has warned of dangerous global heating as governments drag their feet on the climate crisis. The UN Environment Programme says current commitments to cut carbon emissions fall far short of what's needed to adequately reduce global temperature rises. And even if countries stick to those pledges, it may be too little, too late. Paolo Montecillo reports.
Far from the turmoil in the capital, Kabul, farmers in this remote Afghan province are facing a different tragedy. Their livelihoods have dried up as a result of a severe drought.
We had 2 years of drought. Our flocks of sheep have shrunk from 20,000 to around 3,000. We haven't been able to cultivate crops for 2 years because of the drought.
The UN says with crop yields dwindling and herds dying off, as many as 22 million Afghans may go hungry this year. The devastation highlights the need to slash greenhouse emissions and curb global heating as quickly as possible. But the UN Environment Programme says nations haven't stepped up. In a new report, the agency points out that existing government commitments would only slash predicted 2030 emissions by 7.5%. That's a far cry from the 55% reduction needed to keep global temperatures from rising 1.5 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. As it stands, the world's on track to recording temperatures up to 2.7 degrees Celsius higher. Another UN agency says the amount of harmful gases in the atmosphere is also increasing.
Today we are talking about greenhouse gases and we have again broken records in main greenhouse gases: carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. And this negative trend that we have been observing already for decades has continued also.
The reports come ahead of the COP26 climate conference in Scotland this weekend. The UN wants to pressure small and large polluters to reduce their fossil fuel consumption so vulnerable communities aren't hung out to dry. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
For more on UNEP's report, we're joined now by Bruno Pozzi in Geneva. He's the director of the UN Environment Programme's Europe office. Welcome to the programme, Bruno. Thanks so much for joining us. Your latest report paints quite a damning picture of just the progress that's being made towards reducing global heating. Can you just explain to us how far short are countries actually falling in terms of their commitments to cut carbon emissions?
Well, yes, thanks a lot, and thanks for inviting the UN Environment Programme to comment on this subject. And indeed, we are currently heading on the current scenario for a rise of temperature of about 2.7 degrees by the end of the century. And that's according to the emission gap report that we just launched today. That's the latest science that we bring to the debate. And the good thing, however, is that we still have a chance to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees, but we only have 8 years to do so, and we need a really high level of ambition, because what we currently have on the table, all the NDCs and all the ambition that are on the table of COP26 are only bringing down emissions to about 7.5% of what they currently are by 2030, when we would need a cut of roughly 55%, in fact.
Yes, so as you say, your report suggests the world is on track for a global temperature rise of 2.7 degrees this century. In contrast, the Paris Climate Accord has called for a 1.5 degree Celsius temperature rise. Can you tell us the implications of a 2.7 degree rise in global temperatures?
Well, it's without entering into doom scenarios, and obviously what I can say is that we are already currently experiencing the effects of climate change. The crisis is real. We've witnessed in many regions of the globe this summer a number of floodings, a number of wide fires, and things that have never been seen before, to the extent that they happened, and basically as well the geopolitics of climate change are really happening now, and I must say as well that the countries that have less contributed to the climate crisis are actually suffering the most. People live in difficult situation. They will lose their livelihoods. The crops that we used to grow in one region will not be possible anymore. Drought will come in far more serious episodes, as will flooding. So we really need to act, and every decimal that we will degree that we will lower will count indeed.
And just quickly, Bruno, the UN Climate Summit is kicking off this weekend in Glasgow. What are you hoping to see there?
Well, we're hoping to see a really high level of ambition. The GAP report shows there's a gap between the commitment made by countries and the real action on the ground. And climate change, as I said, is happening. So we need to see the commitment transform into action. We need to see the $100 billion per year that have been promised to the developing world reach the actors on the ground. We need to see the rule book of the Paris Agreement finalized, so that we can move with this and have a real time frame to report on emission cuts. And we need to use as well the financial packages that we've got in the post-COVID world, the fiscal incentives that we bring, all these finance inputs, bring them together to make a difference and change the models.
Okay, Bruno Pozzi from the UN Environment Programme. We'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much again for joining us on the programme.